Tell you what, pollen or allergies or something are bad tonight. Alright, this video is how I got my first guitar. I have an article out on it, probably published in 2011. And anyways, my step family that I grew up with took me right at 3 years old, maybe a little over, from my mother. All right, Daddy was not like the most responsible father at that time, but I will tell you this: he came in a lot. We grew up out in San Angelo. He came in a lot. He didn't involve himself in this thing, and anyways, I went to live with a step family. Well, we lived in a little community just to the east side of Abilene, Texas. And in that community, we had a jewelry store. And all the kids, we called Mr. Cotton, we just called him Old Man Cotton. And actually, he really liked that. And so, well, my stepdad had some garages and one point little general store kind of thing, or whatever. Had some stuff in the downtown area. And we lived from that point. You were outside of town, and we were the first road that was called the county road when you leave town, and that's where our house was. And I'd get permission at, I'm guessing I was 5.5, 6 years old, and I had permission for me to go ahead and leave early from hanging around with him at his shop, and for me to walk home. But this is a tiny community, and very safe, and I knew how to check, to cross streets and whatever. But on the way home, there was always 2 or 3 stops I would make to see the old men, the business owners, that I had permission run in there, see them, and then keep on going on home. Well, Old Man Cotton had the jewelry store. And in his jewelry store, when you knock the door open, which I knocked it open, it's because he has a bell hanging at the top of the door, hits the little bell and it jingles, and then he knows he has a customer. Okay, well, he had the hydraulic, whatever you call them, like on storm doors and whatever. He had that on his door, so you couldn't really push it. But I tried, and I'd try to whack that bell every time I went in there, and I did the same thing that day. Went in there, and Mr. Cotton said, with us just talking, he showed me a Fender guitar with a Fender amp, cord to the amp, guitar strap, had it all. And said he had been trying to sell it for close to $400 for quite some time, and nobody would buy it. And did I want to buy it? And I said, I don't have that kind of money. And he said, well, what do you have? And I dug in my pocket, and I think I had 35 cents. And he said, well, I'll sell it to you for $35. And man, I wanted it, but still $35 at 5.5, 6 years old, that's a lot of money. And we're talking my era, not today's children era, my era. And anyways, he said, how's your credit? Well, I didn't know what the word meant, credit. And so he explained it to me that there's good credit and bad credit. And so if you're paying for something and then you don't make your payments, well, you've got bad credit. And how he wrapped it up was, did I have any credit? And I said, no. He said, so you don't have any bad credit. And he said, what will you pay me down on it? And I'm holding the change in my hand. And I said, well, I don't know. He said, well, can you give me half of that? Which turned out to be 17 cents in Texas math. And he said, you take it on home with you. Now, my first grade report card, of course, I started school at 3.5 years old. And there's a whole story in line with that, that I was never truly adopted. I just replaced that when the family took me, they had the birth certificate to a deceased child. They gave me his birth certificate. So, you know, again, we're not talking our era right now. So that's all the identification I ever have. So when it's time for Social Security, I get it under that boy's name. And my name becomes changed without legal process from Edward Dale Lee to my adopted name. I have it in articles, but the reason I don't really go into that is my step family deserves no glory, no attention whatsoever from me. They made their decision to do what they did. I don't care. Okay. But anyways, moving ahead, and yeah, that is odd, but let's move on with me getting my guitar. And so, I probably weigh a full, maybe 45 pounds at my age now, and I'm short. I graduated high school. Of course, I graduated at 15, but I hadn't hit my growing spell, but I graduated high school 94 pounds and 5'3". So, I was kind of small. Well, I didn't know how to adjust, and maybe you couldn't adjust the strap, so I hung the guitar on my shoulders, and it literally was touching the ground. And I had been playing it with the guitar jack plugged in and cord running to the guitar, and we loaded it up, and that's how I walked out of the jewelry store. Well, I got about 1 mile to go with this, and all this outweighs me a bit. So I make it like 3 blocks like that, and then I have to unplug the guitar. And I take the guitar and I walk a block, and I go back and I pick up the amp and bring it. And I did that, doing about that distance each time till I got home. Well, I got home, and I got home later than I should have. Well, I put everything on the screened-in front porch, and then I go inside. Now, from the step family repeating the story many times, and back in 2010, my oldest stepsister she's the one who remembered it again. And to tell it from the outside view, other than what I would remember as myself from the small time incident. So I have both sides of exactly what went on. Oh, okay, I'll take a break while I get a dip. The Lucas Nelson trolls, it's weird, but again, they're so effeminate and liberal and whatever, that to them it's an issue. They're always saying, you always got to spit. They don't sound like that when they say it. They probably sound like a teenage girl, if you could hear them, how they talk in their own head or out loud. But it's in type. But one thing about it is, I'm chewing tobacco, that's what you do. The other thing about it is I'm highly talented, instrumentally and vocally. And Lucas, you're a wannabe Willie. You're no DNA, Willie Nelson DNA. Micah, you're no Willie Nelson DNA. And Lucas, you suck. You can't sing. You have to lip sync. And with that note, Lucas, you suck. You swallow too. I choose to spit. All right, so I get to the front porch and I go inside and I'm a sweaty mess. And the step family, they just laugh at me. And then my stepdad, Dale, he says, you came in late. Did you make like a long stop off? Where did you go? Well, first thing out of my mouth is, I bought a guitar. And everybody just laughs, they know better. And then they laughed and they said something else or a few things, and then I said, no, I bought a guitar. And one of them said, what kind of guitar? And I said, an electric guitar. So, they're not believing me. And we have a few more conversations, and they said, one of them said, well, how did you buy? Oh, they said, how much was it? And I said, $35. And one of them said, well, how did you do that? You don't have $35. And I said, no, I don't, but I have good credit. That's what Mr. Cotton had said. So they had to hear the ins and outs of how. And Dale said, well, where is this guitar? And I said, I'll go get it right now. And I went to bringing guitar, then amp. And they plugged it in. And they said, something about, well, play us something. And I said, it'll cost you. Now, to back up on that, on my way home, old man Sykes had come by and pulled his Jeep over and saw me. That's when I had the guitar and the amp and the strap hanging down to the ground. And he said, sing me something. Now, I was always singing. And play me something. And I said, well, what do you want to hear? And anyway, so I played him 3 songs, or maybe 5. Of course, I'm just hitting the guitar like a LUKAS, okay? Don't know how to play a guitar. LUKAS has been taking lessons, he's learning, but he was up on stage for years. Didn't know a G chord from nothing. But anyways, when I was done, I don't know, he gave me 50 cents or 75 cents. And for singing for him. And he said, now you're a professional. And he had to explain what that meant, that I don't sing for free. I get paid if I'm going to sing and play that guitar. Well, I made it a couple or 3 more blocks and somebody else pulled over. And they wanted me to sing for them. And so I told him, I said, well, you got to pay me first. And he looked at me kind of funny. And anyways, and he said, why? And I said, because I'm a professional. Well, he gave me a quarter for 3 songs. And so anyways, I get the guitar home. And that's my first guitar. I literally got a Fender strap, a Fender amplifier, and guitar strap for $35. All righty, on credit. And I'm a professional. Been a professional since I was 5 years old. And Lucas Nelson, you suck. All right, God bless y'all. Have a good night.